we're getting back to gerrymandering.
But how did it affect your election?
Well, it didn't affect my election because the districts that I had were, were all equal. There was no issue with gerrymandering, but it affected my election at one point. Is when they took the area that I represent, which was Pikesville, Randallstown, Eloise Mills, and I lost probably more than a third of the people that I represented, and so my problem was going to people that I had never represented and losing the people that I represented. So it wasn't gerrymandering; it was just changing the district of the people I represented. Gerrymandering ends up being currently, the issue with gerrymandering currently is what's called Republicans and Democrats, where the Democratic legislator in Maryland, the legislators drew the district that were more favorable to Democrats. The usual issue with gerrymandering has been racial issues, where the various legislators and legislatures in the country would put the African Americans very concentrated or spread out so that their vote wasn't equal to that of other legislative districts that had less African American black folks. But currently the litigation currently has to deal with Republicans and Democrats. Historically, the gerrymandering was racial, where the African American black voters' vote were lessened because they were all concentrated in the area instead of spread out in different districts where their votes would be a little bit more important.
What core values inspire you in your political job? Why?
Say that again?
What core values inspire you what core values inspired you in your what core values inspire you on your political job? Why?
The Torah values, it wasn't one particular Torah values. It's generally what the Torah does, it really helps you understand how to go through your life. So whether it's dealing honestly with people, whether it's Sabbath observing, there's a lot of various things that we learn as Jews that have helped me live my life in a certain fashion, and that helped my thinking as to how I'm going to approach something. And the biggest example I can give you that really sticks out in people's mind is the death penalty. Where I've had, when I was a legislator, there were people that were in favor of the death penalty, and for me, it was Hashem makes a decision as to death. So that particular value as a legislator just really was more important than anything, because that told me how I was going to vote, because that's my belief.
I would like to inspire a better society through this video. Please define your vision of a better society.
Say that again.
Please define your vision of a better society.
Well, right now my vision of American society is that our country right now is very, very divided. And my vision of American society is it changes back to what my normal vision of a society is, where people are accepting one another and get along with each other and help each other. Right now, there's too many angry voices, and that has got me, I'm very uncomfortable with what is happening right now. When I was a legislator, we didn't have this kind of anger and division. We did, as I suggested before, doing people's business. And particularly, I'm uncomfortable with the anger right now that our president expresses and has created with immigrants. Because my family all came from Russia. My mother, may she rest in peace, did her very best to try to get children out of Germany before they were killed in the Holocaust. So the immigrants issue has just got me very upset, and there's an anger over it, because anger about immigrants ends up being people not liking other people because they're different. And the immigrants we're talking about right now ends up being very much Spanish-speaking people.
How do you think how do you think the number of hours you mentioned can be promoted to your constituents through your
Let me hear that closer again.
How do you think the values that you mentioned can be promoted to your constituents through your services, being when you had your political?
Well, one of the ways that you end up doing it is you end up really, and we're doing this right now. Sometimes you help your constituents by taking positions on things and publicizing it, letting them know what your position is. And that helps them because they then know what your feeling is on things. And you're letting them know your feelings to get their reactions to what you're saying. So one of the things that you end up doing is talking to the news media, sending newsletters out, and publicizing your feelings and your views on things. And that also and that makes them comfortable, and it makes them comfortable because it gets back to representative government, is that they're comfortable knowing that there's somebody that they can contact. And the legislators, I can tell you from the county council people in Baltimore County and the city council people in Baltimore City, the state House of Delegates members and state senators in both the Baltimore City and Baltimore County are very good. They're from the community, and they make a point of letting the community know that they can be contacted and they are available to help them out. Okay, we're doing good.
What could you say to the audience to inspire them toward a better society?
The inspiration is really just be nice to the person next to you, be nice to your friends, be nice to your neighbors, be nice to your parents, and so eventually be nice to people. Because when we live together in a society, it works better when people are getting along and are not angry with each other. So make a point of getting to know people who maybe really not comfortable initially knowing, or they may make you feel a little uncomfortable, but the best thing to do is to get to know them and let them get to know you. And if people get along together, then everybody's happier. Because it's easier to be happy than angry. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's too easy to be angry than to try to be happy. Better to be happy. Well, with the question is, how does House of Delegates differ from the other political positions? And I guess part of it is why I selected the House of Delegates as opposed to the other political positions. The House of Delegates deals with very much people issues, deals with things that occur that affects everybody on a very daily basis, deals with education, our schools, deals with crimes, our police department. But more importantly, what the House of Delegates does as opposed to the U.S. Congress, the House of Delegates deals with issues that are directly in the community. And one of the things I liked about being the House of Delegates is I was in the community and I'm directly representing the community. Now, little thing that makes it a little bit different between the House of Delegates and the Congress is the House of Delegates only meets 3 months out of the year, 90 days. So after 90 days, essentially the House of Delegates and the Maryland State Senate, they are back into their community and they're representing that community because they're back where they live. Whereas most of the U.S. representatives and the U.S. senators, most of them don't live where it's easy to get back and forth from Washington. So a good part of the year they are in Washington. And part of that ends up being the people that they are seeing and the people that are working with ends up being very much, this is compared to the House of Delegates, ends up being what's called lobbyists. And they're not seeing that the people that they're representing directly because they are living in Washington. And nothing wrong with that, but that's how the system operates. The city council and the county council deal with issues that really affect only Baltimore County or Baltimore City. Very limited because those issues are things such as garbage collection, whether or not you're going to have a liquor store located someplace. And the difference between that and the state legislators are dealing with laws for the entire state, and it ends up being little more, for me, a little more academic and much more satisfying than spending a good part of the day worrying about whether the garbage gets collected. And it's not to say the county council is not important, but I'm just trying to give you the contrast. The contrast is the county and city council people take care of really absolute day-to-day problems. The state legislator deals with, yes, things that affect you every day, but it affects the entire state. And the state legislators are living in the community pretty much 9 months out of the year. And the Congress deals with very broad things, broader than this simply what happens to you day to day. They're dealing with national defense, they're dealing with whether we're going to go to war, they're dealing with whether or not people are going to have food stamps. So that's the contrast.
Why is it that that sometimes members of Congress will have staff members who are of the opposite political party?
Yeah. Okay. What you have is that this is county councilmen, county council persons, city council persons, House of Delegates, state senators, U.S. congressmen, and U.S. senators. There's a lot of work that has to be done, and they can't do it all themselves, so they need people working for them. And that the staff members are people who are lawyers, for example, who can help them read what a proposed law is. They have people that are staff members that help go and deal with constituents. So they need a staff to operate. The same way as your school. You got principal, vice principals, you got different counselors, and all those people have to work together. But more importantly, the principal can't do it by himself. He needs the teachers, he needs the counselors. He needs somebody to turn the heat on in the morning. And so it's the same thing with the Congress and all representative government. You need staff members. And part of the criticism, we'll just get into the president, part of the criticism of our president right now is that he doesn't have staff that really know what they're doing, and there's positions that he hasn't filled. So he's very much operating with that what I call proper staff. And if you take a look, he's fired a lot of people on his staff. For example, the last person who quit ends up being the Secretary of Defense. So you need these kind of people to help do the job.
I know, but why is it that sometimes a politician will hire members of the opposite political party to be a staff member?
The reason is that they're not concerned because the person is there not because of what political party they're in. The person should be in that job because they know how to do this job. For example, if you got somebody who, let's say, knows insurance, for example, the Affordable Care Act, which is health insurance. So you are, if you're doing your right job, you should be more interested in somebody who is a good lawyer or a good professor who is able to really take care of understanding what the Affordable Care Act with health insurance does. Now, the other part of the situation is that the person who's working for the legislator should know what they're doing in terms of that particular what's called expertise, but that person also has to understand that they're working for somebody who has a certain political views. So it's okay. It's nothing wrong with hiring somebody from the other political party. But you should really be hiring somebody who knows what they're doing, and the person who is doing the job should understand that their immediate boss is that person who's of a different political party. The question is, how does a politician do it? The politician really can't do it because the politician ends up really almost, that doesn't have the ability, the organizational ability to do it. The best way for the politician to do it is to know the different organizations, in the area that they're representing. For example, in our area we have the Associated Jewish Charities, you have the Associated Catholic Charities, you have different civic, the Red Cross. You have, for example, you got different environmental groups like the Sierra Club. So what the politician should do is just really communicate and work with these different organizations, which should be really nonprofit organizations that are already active in the community. And in our community, there's enough organizations that are available to help the politician really cement the community together. And what the politician's doing is really looking for those organizations that are doing the work and supporting them. And for example, there are the Associated Jewish Charities ends up having different days down in Annapolis where they come and meet the legislators. So that's what they do. They come and meet the legislators. Well, the legislators and all the legislators in this area make a point of being involved in the different community groups. And the community groups bring the community together. Okay. My TV audience, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk, and that any kind of, we're living in this, we've talked a little bit about, I'm unhappy with how things are going with a lot of the politicians. One of the things that is really good about our society right now is that, and this is maybe the past 30 years or so, is our society is recognizing that not everybody's the same. Some people have different problems, and that it's important to recognize the problems and to for people with problems, make it easier for them to do the things that they would like to do. and I think Harbor School is doing a fantastic job.